Good morning. Welcome to Hope Unitarian Church, where our mission is seeking hope, love, and justice together in community. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, and whatever your life circumstance, you are welcome here. If you are new to Hope or still feeling new or are in need of pastoral care, I invite you to contact me at the church. Hope's contact information appears on screen at the end of the worship hour. To all who are here this morning, welcome home. The flaming chalice, symbol of our living faith, burns brightly. Let's say our unison words for chalice lighting. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. Come, light of truth, come. Help us expand the ways of knowing. Pour, water of life, pour. Fill us to overflowing with joy unspeakable. Rise, Spirit of justice, rise. Let us build the world we dream about. Rejoice, Spirit of life, rejoice. By faith together, we are free. Blessed be. Please join me in reciting our living covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now let's join Carol and sing hymn number 12 in the gray hymnal. O life that maketh all things new.
My heart.
I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, we come to you in a time of confusion and injustice and wonder where and when it'll end. The virus bears down on us unrelenting and out of control angel of death.
This is the
Take
meditation.
us to our way of escape in the land of promise. Another unarmed young black man is tossed on the pile of corpses that, like the Tower of Babel, reaches heavenward from roots in hell. Just leaving home is an act of courage. Give us real opportunities to intervene. An election of historical importance and real life consequence looms over this land. The demise of democracy and the rise of authoritarianism is not just a passing fad. It is who we are becoming. Rise up, O people, rise up. Nature's fury suggests an imbalance of cosmic proportions. But Mother Nature will not go down without a fight. We will fight on her behalf, or will we fight for her best interests? Forgive our complacency. Rebuke our hesitation. In this time when hope is hard to find, let us remember that the sun rises every morning. Its long blades penetrating our cold hearts with unconditional love. The moon lights our darkness, and stars reach out in all directions to touch our souls with magic. The cycle of life continues unabated. There are more saviors to be born, more wounded to be healed, more prophets to be heard, more love to be had. Let hope have the last word. May we sit in silence and be one in spirit.
Our reading this morning is Wordsworth's Mountain. It's an excerpt from Long Life by Mary Oliver. There is a rumor of total welcome among the crosses. Questions and striving toward answers, they come from within. The field I'm looking at is perhaps 20 acres altogether, long and broad. The sun is not yet risen, but is sending its first showers over the mountains. A kind of rehearsal, a slant light with even a golden cast. I do not exaggerate. The light touches every blade of frozen grass, which then burns as a particular as well as a part of the general food. The still upright weeds have become wands, a temporary shirt of ice and light. Neither does this first light miss the opportunity of the small pond or the roots of pine trees. And now, enough of silver, behold the pink, even a vague, unsurpassable flush of pale green. It is the performance of this hour, the dawning of the day, fresh and ever new. This is to say nothing against afternoons, evenings, or even midnights. This is to say nothing against even midnight. Each has its portion of the spectacular. But dawn is a gift. Much is revealed about a person by his or her passion or indifference to this opening of the door of day. Wordsworth, though he did not think so on the summer evening, was a lucky boy. I, in my hut of leaves, was a lucky girl. Something touched between us and the universe. It does not always happen, but if it does, we know forever where we live. No matter where we sleep or eat our dinner or sit at table and write words on paper. And we might, in our lives, have many thresholds, many houses to walk out from and view the stars, or to turn and go back to for warmth and company. But the real one, the actual house, not of beams and nails, but of existence itself, is all of earth, with no door, no address, separate from oceans or stars, or from pleasure or wretchedness either, of hope or weakness or greed. How wonderful that the universe is beautiful in so many places, in so many ways. But also the universe is brisk and businesslike, and no doubt does not give its delicate landscapes, or its thunderous displays of power, and perhaps perception too, for our sake, of our improvement. Nevertheless, its intonations are our best times, if we would take them. For the world is full of radiant suggestion. For whatever reason, the heart cannot separate the world's appearance and actions from morality and valor, and the power of every idea is intensified if not actually created, by its expression in substance. Over and over, in the butterfly, we see the idea of transcendence. In the forest, we see not the inert, but the aspiring. In water that departs forever and forever, returns, we experience eternity. It's interesting that the things we cherish most are the same things we walk right by. They become so intertwined in the status quo that ultimately it becomes impossible to tell them apart from our daily. That is impossible until things change. Because as it turns out, that thing we call love, it has a saying. There's a saying, you never really know what you have until it's gone. Sometimes it takes the most abrasive of the harshest to help us recapture that perspective, to lift us up and show us what we had previously failed to see. And while our darkest moments test our strength, they push our boundaries, even transform our reality. They can also be the bridge that leads us exactly where we need to be. They remind us that sometimes it's not about how we spend our time, but who we spend it with. That quiet brings clarity, and the world can spin so fast that we forget to think about our place within. It reminds us how humanity is bigger than the sum of its parts. And it takes just as much energy to build up as it does to tear down. It reminds us that no matter where we live, what we speak, or who we pray to, we're not so different. It reminds us that there is so much more good in this world than evil, so much more hate, and so much promise for tomorrow. Someday, we'll look back on this moment with the lessons that we've learned, the hardships we've faced, and we will be reminded of the miracle that is the human spirit, unwavering in its resolve, unbreakable at its foundation, stronger than we could ever comprehend. See, sometimes it's hard to look around and find a reason to be optimistic, to understand or comprehend why. But what we'll find is that if we look hard enough, immersed in the uncertainty, the disruption, and in some cases the tragedy, there is something to be gained. A tiny candle flickering in the night that will eventually grow to light one day. Because that road to tomorrow is paved with hope. There are pages unwritten, stories untold, and a new chapter to begin. That's Carol's.
Of all the rites and rituals of the church with a capital C, the one that embraces hope the most is the wedding. For two individuals to become one flesh is neither fable nor folly. Rather, it is a revolutionary stance that asserts that the power of partnership in a culture that worships the individual above all else. These days, we expect marriages to fall apart, given the oft-quoted statistic of its 50% plus failure rate. You know, not long ago, there was little societal pressure to get married unless, of course, the law said you cannot. This was true for most of my lifetime. Thank heaven for marriage equality, although it is currently under attack again by conservatives and evangelicals. I don't put it past Trump and the court to outlaw gay marriage if he's returned to the White House and slippery senators aren't sent home packing. And don't get me started about Supreme Court picks who are all waiting in the wings for the president's phone call. Haven't you heard? According to Jim Inhofe, progressives, liberals, and socialists are not even Oklahomans. We've been put out by our own elected official. And I bet we all know citizens who agree with Jim. Perhaps even you do too. Now back to weddings which evoke hope. Go back in time for a minute. Then society's instinct was to swing to the other extreme, even if it meant amending the Constitution to define the parameters of marriage. You see where that left us? Many of us didn't care whether you make a lifetime commitment or simply shack up, so long as each of you possesses dissimilar plumbing. But two matching sets were once a cultural faux pas, an immoral coupling, and an illegal liaison, which could find you in shackles if you won't settle for shacking up. In other words, there was little motivation for anyone to marry at all. Still, I see them coming down the aisle toward me. Couples of all ages, of virtually all and often conflicting spiritualities, of varying ethnicities and economic statuses, often highly educated and fairly enlightened, their lives ground in reality and bothered by unusual busyness. Now, from all walks of life and many lifestyles, they head down the aisle toward me. Couples of all kinds and identities make the trip from the narthex to the altar. It's good to feel like you belong. Now, the one characteristic they hold in common is their unwavering hope. They know all about the 50-50 odds and the common law option. They struggle with the oneness of the marriage metaphor and the dualism of the day-to-day. Still, they come. And when they meet me at the front of the aisle and we all look into each other's eyes, we find ourselves standing on the edge of hope. Now, some would surely ask, isn't a child dedication or christening or baby baptism, isn't that the ultimate rite of passage so far as hope is concerned? Who would not find more hope in the innocent eyes of the newborn, in the subtle rise and fall of flesh-covering little lungs, and in the instinctive grasps of miniature hands? The world stops for me during such rituals. Each child represents another chance for humanity to get it right. As hope-filled as baby blessings are, I find that the rite of marriage strikes deeper at the heart of hope. It is because of the innocence that has been lost, of the scabs that have been formed, and the scars that have lingered, of the grasps that have failed to catch the dreams of idealism that give hope its primacy in marriage. People who have weathered the storms in life still find a reason to set sail together must hedge their bets on hope, and hope alone. Now, if marriages are based on hope, then I should be one of the happiest ministers around. And I am, mostly, for I tend to take on some of the weirdest weddings imaginable. Now, I'm not talking about the usual interfaith or multicultural ceremonies. For a Unitarian Universalist minister, these are a given. For often we are the only ones willing and blessed by ecclesial authority to perform them. Well, I'm thinking more of a wedding I performed for a couple and their guests on a hidden beach among elephant seals at mating season. The louder I spoke, the more boisterous became the mating calls. We all wore formal attire and flip-flops. With the flip-flops had the names of the bride and groom stitched in the sides of the soles. When the ceremony ended, the wedding party headed for the water, and the elephant seals began to shake their heads with an arrogance that was not entirely uncalled for. In the midst of a chorus of animal sounds and a sun-drenched, sand-blown bridal party, hope emerged as the bride, a mother of 2 teens, and the groom, about to enter his 3rd marriage, shared first a gaze and then a kiss. Surely this would be the perfect match. Hope examines the odds and, like a slot machine or a roulette table, begs convincingly for just one more play, one more pull of the arm or throw of the dice. Loss may follow if you do, but life may drain if you don't. Nothing is certain but uncertainty. Hope pushes not towards knowing, but to believing. I'm thinking of the wedding I officiated in the Hollywood Hills, in a swimming pool. Sometimes they were with water and sometimes they were without water, but always with cameras rolling. Performance took priority over piety, and multiple takes of the exchange of rings and vows or the kiss were not unusual. It got so I couldn't wait to hear the wedding coordinator say, "Okay, folks, that's a wrap." A personal favorite of mine was a wedding at the home of a Grammy Award-winning executive of the Walt Disney Company, who was an avid collector of trains of all sizes. The ceremony featured the bride arriving on a full-size, old-fashioned locomotive amidst noisy bells and steam-filled belches on genuine train tracks laid especially for the occasion. Meanwhile, the groomsmen worked up a good sweat as they pumped a self-propelled flat car from the other direction. Vows were exchanged appropriately under the eaves of an authentic turn-of-the-century train station. They had to pay me extra to wear the engineer's cap and overalls. I recall another wedding. It was atop a big Los Angeles skyscraper in the penthouse suite. It had a huge outdoor patio. The climax of these nuptials was not the kissing of the bride, but the falling of an inebriated guest, falling from the rooftop to the next rooftop below. Her apology to the bride must have been accompanied by a nervous stomach, for the bride was soon wearing its contents. From what I have been told, the newlyweds still have the stained garment, a token of the celebrity's inner self. Now, we assume we assume that weddings are doomed from the start. We may even want them to fail, as if fame alone is life's ultimate reward. They don't need to be happy too, do they? The spotlight always finds Miley's breakups, but is dark for the long-term unions of those in the public eye. After all, the famous simply encounter too many pressures to persevere in relationships. Hope addresses the unlikely with a gentle but insistent maybe. It's a maybe that pulls us back from the edge, far enough for stability, but not so far as to obstruct the view. Hope even suggests that if we fail, the abyss is not as deep as we think. Hope is its own safety net. Then there was the Hells Angels wedding, with a bride riding side saddle down the church aisle on the back of a Harley. I'm told, but not convinced, that there is nothing more appropriate to set the tone for romance than the smell of gasoline and exhaust fumes. Now, the only time the helmets came off was when it was time for the bride and groom to kiss. Clearly something they had done many, many times before. It was the first wedding kiss I actually had to break up, a tactic not in the training manual. Given the groomsmen, I made a hasty retreat to my car and sped off into the sunset. Even hope knows when to retreat, engaging the mind as well as the heart. Hope that is viable insists on reasonable faith, not blind faith. Hope endeavors to tip the balance in favor of the good, often by a nose rather than a landslide. Now, I must tell you about some far out nuptials in the high Sierras. How about a Celtic wedding in which the men wore kilts and the women wore dresses? From a distance, it was difficult to determine who was who and what was what. This wedding took place in a very small mountain town. When a bunch of locals got wind of the lesbian wedding being performed on their own town square, well, let's just say that most of the bruises appeared on the bodies of the pant-clad intruders. The kilted clan had won the day. What a great way to start a celebration of love. 2 summers ago, I officiated a wedding on the gondola of a ski lift north of Lake Tahoe, California. As that overloaded gondola strained and creaked over bottomless ravines, my acrophobia set in, and I found myself speaking faster and getting impatient. Talk about bride-side manner. Would you get the ring on already? Forget the vows, just say I do and get it over with. I now pronounce you husband and wife, not to mention crazy for life. We all survived, but I intend to set elevation limitations in all future wedding consultations. Me, I'm hoping for more celebrations at sea level. These are some of the tamer examples of the weddings at which I have officiated. And in spite of their humorous moments, all participants took these ceremonies as seriously and as sacredly as their more traditional counterparts. And while the forms for weddings evolve constantly, the content of vows being shared suggests a renewed desire for clarity, monogamy, and the extension of the marital relationship deep into the wider world. More than just a tired ritual, there is today a greater willingness to make public promises that necessitate standing on the edge of hope. In the aforementioned Celtic wedding held on September 11th, no less, the bride and groom beseeched the elements to destroy them should they break their vows to each other. Now that's clear, that's committed, and that's really leaning over the edge of hope. Extreme perhaps, but more typical nowadays. As part of the planning process, I often ask couples why they want to be married now. Why bother to make a personal commitment to each other now when our own government is reneging on its commitments to viable health care for the poor, seniors, and children? Why bring children into a world in which precision testing takes precedence over comprehensive education? Why be married in a time and place that fails to support the multilateral peacekeeping ideology of the United Nations and instead arrogantly engages in unilateral war making? If we as a nation continue down this path, no one will live long enough to love long enough. What sense is there in celebrating your love when there is virtually no one left to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit the prisoner, or welcome the immigrant? Shouldn't couples just wait until fear subsides? Well, if recent history has taught us anything, it is that we are living in a culture of fear. The optimism and hope that resulted in democracy is being eroded by the pessimism and fear that nudges us towards fascism. It's just plain hopeless. That is, until I read the wedding vows of two 20-somethings that included these promises. And I quote, "Recognizing our place in the world, we will be dedicated to teaching courtesy and compassion, as well as respect and acceptance of all people. We will work to share our love of the natural world and to make that sharing a part of all of life's endeavors. We will continue our commitment to the betterment of the world, using our talents to serve those in need, both at home and in the world." And then, before the traditional breaking of the glass, I read this. "The breaking of the glass not only marks the end of the ceremony and the beginning of the celebration, but the shattering of the glass is also a reminder that even in times of celebration, the world is still broken and requires our care. The glass is not only a reminder of sorrow, but also an expression of hope in the future." These are not the naive comments of young lovers. Vows that extend beyond a couple's immediate relationship are a sign of maturity if there ever was one. Far from being driven by fear, they stand at the edge of hope and are willing to risk the plunge. And here is the key. By finding each other, they have found something to live for beyond each other. It is something that gives them hope and fights back fear, even in the face of impending fascism. Hope is the essence of salvation in a world that mourns the salvific as obsolete. During this series on hope, we will hear from other people who have lived less sheltered lives than we have and still find reasons for hope. We will learn about people and projects that have defied the status quo and stuck it to the politicians. Some are names and endeavors you will surely recognize. Others share no limelight, but are building coalitions of change whose successes are baffling the so-called experts and challenging multinational corporate interests. And then finally, we'll consult the academics of divergent perspectives and still cling to hope. The important point is this: never before has a revolution toward a full and shared humanity been taken up by so many people around the world at the same time. Yet to make the case for hope in an era of unprecedented nihilism and fear-based nationalism is both risky and dangerous. Albert Schweitzer wrote, "Persons who possess a veneration of life will not simply say their prayers. They will throw themselves into the battle to preserve life, if for no other reason than that they are an extension of life around them." Simply put, hope is an unwavering belief in life, regardless of one's circumstances, while fear focuses on the one circumstance we all share: our inevitable death. So here we are, standing on the edge of hope. Set before us are life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life so that you and future generations may live to the glory of life. Today's offering in its entirety supports our partner in ministry, RIP Medical Debt. The organization empowers donors to forgive billions in oppressive medical debt. They are dedicated to removing the burden of medical debt for individuals and families and veterans across America. Please give generously to make a difference in the lives of those who are hurting, both financially and medically. If you are visiting with us for the first time, you need only pass the virtual plate. You are our guests, and we're glad you're here. May today's offering reflect our highest aspirations for the work of this church in the world. Let's say our unison offertory words together. We build on foundations we did not lay. We warm ourselves at fires we did not light. We sit in the shade of trees we did not plant. We drink from wells we did not dig. We profit from persons we did not know. We are ever bound in community. Now please lift your voices to sing hymn number 311. That's 311. Let it be a dance. Our chalice is now extinguished. Please say these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we will carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now may the love that casts out fear and the truth that sets us free lead us forward together till the day spring breaks and the shadows flee away. Amen.
Give us strength to and I pray for you is the peace that's true until we